Hey, Nitzan Mosery here, the Traveling Investor, and welcome to another week of the Traveling Investor live Q&A show where you get to ask us questions real time and where I interview successful people who have learned how to either master their mind, body, or wallet. So welcome to another live show. It's awesome to be here. Let's remember to say hello to Master Yoda. Right? We all know what Master Yoda says, do or do not. There is no try. So whatever it is that you want to do in life, whatever it is you want to expand and enjoy and create, well, go ahead and do it. There's no such thing as trying. And as I tell my daughters, do it. And it's okay to fail. Because if you fail, at least you're moving forward. At least you're learning. You're growing. You figured out how something doesn't work, which is always a good thing. And now you can move on and figure it out and move forward. So it's always good to start at a really young age and get those muscles, those entrepreneurial muscles working for you. And that kind of leads me into today's guest, Riley. You know, Riley's a graduate from Western University, and if I'm correct, that's in Ontario, Canada, where he studied business and kinesiology while competing in varsity track and field. So from the age of 18 to 24, he started multiple businesses, including a home maintenance London and RO Business Consulting, which combined surpassed over $2 million in revenue. And this is from a kid, 18, 24 years old, right? Between the ages of 18 to 24. So if an 18-year-old can put his life and move into a certain goal, into a certain, path, there's no reason why no one else can do it as well, right? And we're going to talk to him. Today, Riley operates his business from afar, right? And he now focuses his career on real estate investing full time. So he's passionate about helping people get their first step in real estate investing so they can change their lives. And it's a pleasure. Hey, Riley, you there?
I am. Yes. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely, my friend. Thanks for being here. I know you're super busy with your companies and whatnot. And, so tell us about Riley, who went to Western University. Who were you before? Bring us up to speed on today.
Who was I before? Oh man. I guess like growing up, like I grew up in a pretty rural place in Nova Scotia. Close friend group, but like one of those small towns where you're driving down the road and everyone, you're waving the entire time. And it was a lot of fun, like for sure growing up in a rural area. And at the same time, there was no focus ever on like running businesses usually or growing an asset pool. There was no talk of that at all. The main focus, I guess, on my career at that point was like, okay, like I'll just make a buy, I'll work an hourly wage job, things will be good. That's what everyone else does. That's what my family did. That's what my friends, family members, had done as well. So yeah, there was definitely a shift. I want to say, I went to university, got into a lot of debt, as many do, and at that point, it became obvious that if I didn't start paying off some of this debt from university, that I was going to be 35 or 40 still paying it off, and that interest is going to be at like 8, 9, 10%, and there's no way I'm going to get out of it. So what did I do? Well, the first year after university, I just went home. I worked like the best paying job I could find. It was $17 an hour. That was the dream. Minimum wage at the time was $10 an hour. So I was happy with that. That's who I was before though. It was like, that was okay. I realized that wasn't going to be for me though, long-term, and quickly kind of changed my path into like just entrepreneurship, running businesses. And like we can kind of talk about that transition too, but that's kind of who I was before. Like, definitely wasn't focused on my career or on finances. It was just about having a good time. And I think that's okay. At a young age in your teenage years, it shouldn't be all about growing up yet fully and making a bunch of money. But that's who I was before, for sure.
Yeah, no, absolutely. The teens are made to have fun, right? College years are also for a nice 4-year vacation, as Gary Vee says. But it's amazing how, someone at the age of 18 can actually have that foresight and to see into the future and to understand that, if I go down the path that I'm led to believe that this is the path, I'm not really going to go anywhere. I'm just going to go down. I'm going to sink further into my hole, right? And you were quick to understand that, and that's what's so amazing is that even in this, in this country, someone so young has the ability to go out and build a life for themselves and create income, create a company, a business, and create a lifestyle and be successful, right? That's kind of part of the American dream.
I agree. Yeah, I think that's what we tend to take for granted. I certainly did, and now knowing the power behind it, I'm never going back. Yeah, never going back to working an hourly wage job. Yeah.
So now tell us about the transition that you made.
Yeah, well, I think it really came down to, again, like all this debt, all this pressure to pay it off. And I'm like, there's no way that this is going to work at $17 an hour. And then I started becoming familiar with like the results economy. And there was a mentor of mine. It was in this like corporation that I was working for as well. And they really shaped my mind around like, hey, what is the results economy? Well, it's like you're actually going to be paid what you're worth. Like, so, that's kind of getting into the sales atmosphere. So I was like in a sales job and I'm like, okay, this is pretty cool. Like I'm being compensated for my results, like not necessarily for an hourly wage. Like someone else is not dictating how much I'm worth per hour.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that was the transition. I'm like starting to get compensated based on my results. And I'm like, well, how can I take this to the next level? Like, how can I really leverage things? And that really led me into like assets and like, owning properties and having tenants be able to pay down the mortgage and also make me money as well monthly. And ultimately financial freedom, is the goal for many people. And that's for sure a horizon of myself that I've been working on and pretty well achieved it for myself. And now it's to retire my parents. And yeah, so financial freedom is for sure something that has been kind of that North Star, right? But that was the transition. It was all about like, how do I get paid what I'm worth? And then also, how do I really leverage my time from what I'm paid per hour?
Mm-hmm. Sure, absolutely. So when you started learning, you said you had a mentor, right? Early on. Did you also have was that a mentor for your real estate investing, or was that, did you have a mentor when you started investing in real estate?
Yeah, that's a great question. I kind of look back on my mentors and I've had quite a few now, luckily, and they've each been like a great stepping stone into the next. My first one was like a track coach. So I had like a track coach when I was in high school, and she was like, and again, I lived in a community with like a few thousand people. She was like on Team Canada, like as the track coach there. So that was like my number one first mentor for sure and coach. And she kind of shaped the idea of like work ethic and what that can do for you and delayed gratification and all those really great and important habits too that you need to have. And so she really set me on that path. And then my first business kind of coach or mentor was in this, it's called Student Works Management Program, basically an organization that helps like university students to run their first business. So they kind of shaped a lot of my knowledge now around business. And then my next mentor was in real estate. His name is Corey, and he taught me a lot about real estate investing. And I've had a few other real estate investing coaches since then.
Is that Corey Peterson?
Corey McKinnon.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, McKinnon. Okay. Mm-hmm. And I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. And you said you had more mentors after that?
Yeah, I've had a few others that have been able to kind of teach me about like subdivision development and buildings and kind of certain different strategies. But he was certainly the first real estate investing coach that set me on the path here. And I think I'll always use a coach or a mentor in the future. It's inevitable. Like it's just such a way to condense like your path. You can learn from all their mistakes, all their failures. And that's why I'm happy to do the same thing today with my students.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So what is your niche in real estate?
My niche would be like multifamily properties and joint venturing with people using the BRRRR strategy. So we refinance the property after about a year and then get them their money back. And now they're in the property for none of their own money. So that would be kind of the niche, like 2 to 4 units. And then we also have a portfolio of Airbnbs that we have up in like Northern Ontario. And with COVID, they're doing actually really, really well. But so those are kind of the two main niches that we have.
Oh, that's fantastic. And so when you go out and you the multifamilies, you're doing that, you said in Ontario. Do you have any properties down here?
I don't have anything in America right now. Actually, funny enough, I'm working with a coach that he's specifically coaching me on how to be a Canadian investing in the USA. So that's the next big transition here in the next, I would say 3 to 4 months, we should own the next property, the first one in the US.
Okay,
I'm
that's
excited for that.
fantastic. That's great. So how do you see the differences? Are there any differences in the way transactions are held in Canada, or how properties are held title wise and deeds and whatnot versus here in the US?
From my understanding so far, and again, I'm not an expert here, so I'm going to just speak from my level 1 of knowledge. But in the States, it sounds like a lot of the time, like when people invest, they set up an LLC, and then they put the property in that LLC. Whereas like in Canada, like I don't know the difference in terms of the pricing, but it's pretty expensive here to like set up a corporation, to have like the paperwork done every year. So it usually doesn't make sense to set up like a corp here to buy properties. So we just buy with our own name, not with a corporation name. And yeah, so I think that's probably the biggest difference right now that I kind of understand. Yeah.
How do you see the Ontario market right now? Where are you on that market cycle?
Yeah, we're around like year 12 out of 17. So, we're peaking for sure. And, I don't want to say that there's going to be a crash. I don't believe that there's going to be, call it a crash, but things are going to come down, or it's at least going to plateau very soon. I would imagine in the next year and a half, 2 years. But we've been steadily increasing now for, the better half of a decade. And this last year in some markets like Toronto, kind of like the major city here in Canada, we saw over 20% increase. So,
wow, that's fantastic.
Pretty significant.
Wow, that's huge. That's huge. All right, so let's talk about you, 18 to 24-year-old. You started these companies, right? That generated $2 million in revenue. Take us through that. How you started. What were some of your pitfalls that you want to share with people that need to look out when they're creating their own companies, right? What was your motivation?
Yeah, like looking back, just to kind of dissect, it was about a 5-year period from 18 to 23. But yeah, like the first company there was a window cleaning company. So I did window cleaning and eave cleaning and pressure wash decks and just anything we could really do and get our hands on. So I started knocking on houses, and I didn't have money for like advertisements or anything at all. So I just had to basically go out and just knock on houses. So definitely knocked on like tens and tens of thousands of houses over the course of like 2-3 years. And like it was to the point where like by year 2, year 3, I had knocked on some of these homes like 4 or 5 times. So people knew me by my name. They're like, "Oh, you're back." Like, I don't need my windows cleaned yet, but maybe next time. And I think if there's one major habit for sure, or even one like experience that I can reflect on in my first year running that business and knocking on these houses, was just perseverance. I had never been rejected so many times in my life. And when you're knocking on, 1,000 doors, like maybe 50 people or 100 people are like actually interested, if that, if you're lucky. And so, like rejection, definitely was prevalent in the door knocking industry, as you can imagine, or business. And so for me, I kind of gained like this kind of Teflon skin, you could say, in terms of rejection. Like I just feel like I can deflect and still be satisfied with myself, even though I might be rejected. So
you don't take the rejection personally now.
Pardon?
You don't take the rejection personally.
That's exactly
it's not a personal rejection. They're just saying no to the offer. So you say, okay, I got to change the offer next time.
Yeah. And man, was it ever awkward? I'm like 18 talking to 50-year-olds and they're like telling me to get off their porch, or like they're like, no, like, what are you doing? Like, but then here was the breakthrough for me. And I think this is what shifted. When I started talking to like people that, they had $1 million houses in the city there that I was running the business, and they were super well off, like gorgeous property. And they obviously did super well for themselves. They acted different when I knocked on their home. They were encouraging me. Like some of them would bring me inside of their home, and like one couple actually had dinner and they're like, "You look hungry. You've been out all day. Like come in and eat." Or like other people would give me water. Like it was just, those individuals are the ones that I remember. The others I just kind of felt bad for, the ones that were like dissing me or like saying, "Hey, you can't, that you're annoying me. You're knocking on my home." But the ones that have been successful, like they've been there, they've done it before. And so I that stayed with me for sure. Because my limiting belief before that was like the rich are just evil people, or they're mean. Not at all the truth, for the majority of the time. Yeah.
Right. They, like you said, they've been there. They understand the struggle. They
Yeah.
understand the passion and the grind as well, so they can relate to you, right? Someone who has never been through something like that can't relate. And like you know, just perfectly the way you said it, you're just bothering them in their house. It's like, well, you know, why are you here? So it's great that you're able to differentiate that different mindset from people and understand that, you know what, it is a mindset, and it comes from experience, it comes from hard work, it comes from, you know, failure and success and just being in it, right? So that just keeps driving you. And I like what you said, where you also have to grow this, you know, armor, this tough armor, tough skin, even when we're doing real estate, right? And we're raising capital from people. How many times we go to our investors or we talk to people and they reject us? They say, "Oh my God, you know, it's not working. It's not working. It's me, it's me, it's me." And then you realize that, you know what, I've got a great opportunity here. If you don't want to take advantage of it, well, that's your loss. I'm just going to go to the next guy, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I'd recommend to anyone, if you're looking to kind of get your foot in the door and get a bit of experience with like what it's like to be an entrepreneur, get into like a position where you're getting rejected a lot. If even if it's the school of hard knocks, that's what I call it. I really look at it now as like millionaires boot camp. Because like, yeah, like a lot of my friends that were also doing that, like have done super well for themselves. And I think there's something to be said for that rejection for sure. And being able to, like you said here, build up that thick skin and be able to take on rejection. Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely. So now you've went out, you've, you know, been on the road to hard knocks, and you've, you know, got rejected, had success, started buying real estate, and now you're in the process of giving back by helping and mentoring and coaching other people, right?
That's exactly it. Yeah. So really, when I was like through the kind of going through the learning curve of how to create this real estate investing business that I envisioned for myself, and I've been going to conferences and events and any meetups that I could find, like just, you know, weekend event here or webinar there. And it was obvious when I was in like larger groups and the speaker would ask, "Hey, who here owns real estate?" And like maybe 5% of people raised their hand. So a lot of people were there just kind of soaking it all in. And through about a year and a half of going to these conferences and events, it became obvious that many people that were raising their hand over and over again that they still hadn't bought a property, they were just maybe stuck. They were in paralysis analysis. They had been educating themselves for a long, long time and still did not buy a property. So for me, yeah, again, it kind of became obvious that there was a need there. There was probably, a demand for someone that could help them get from 0 to 1. Because after they got 1, it was obvious that, hey, people just took off. They were unleashed. And they went from 1 to 5 or 5 to 50.
Right.
And that second property is like 10 times easier than the first. So that's really why I put together like this program after I've done quite well with real estate investing to help people go from 0 to 1. Because I think if I can get them over that hurdle and have them manage their first property profitably and passively, then they're going to be just, again, unleashed. And a lot of people feel stuck at the beginning, I find, and in this paralysis analysis. So that's kind of been my niche there in the coaching side of things, is helping people buy their first income property.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's great. And you do that for Canadians.
Yeah, like I think everyone has one thing in common that I've worked with. Some are from the States. I have a student in Ireland and in British Virgin Islands and in the UK. And it basically, like, they're all looking to buy their first property in Canada in the next 12 months. That's kind of like our main criteria. And they're looking to put in at least 10 hours a week around educating themselves and taking action to buy that first property.
Wow, that's fantastic. That's great. And I agree. It's always the first one, right? The first one's always the hardest, right? Yeah. How do we do it? What do we look for? Oh my God, I don't want to make a mistake, right? What if we fail? What if we lose money? And it's great to have someone who's like you said, been there, done that, and now is taking them, by the hand and saying, "Hey, you know what? Let me show you how to do the first one. After the first one, you know how to do it all. It's easy." And then they take off, right? That's a good game plan.
Yeah, no, it's worked well. In the last couple of months, we helped 40 people, and the goal is to get to 1,000 in the next 5 years. So that would that'd be pretty cool for me. That's the mission anyway. Help 1,000 people. Yeah.
Oh, very cool. Very nice. Very nice. And you're still investing in real estate as well?
Yeah. So we're actively taking on people that want to partner with us and buy property. We're definitely kind of transitioning now into like the commercial space, so kind of 5 or more units.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we're still kind of in the residential 2 to 4 unit property era, and yeah, so that's probably about 20 to 30 hours a week for me right now, is just managing acquisitions and renovations and property management. And yeah, and then the other kind of half of my time goes towards the coaching with my students.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's great. So, for the people that are listening, people that are going to be listening, that want to get started in real estate, what would you say would be, some of the top 3 to 5 things they need to do before getting involved in real estate?
Right. Well, yeah. I think at the beginning, like I can kind of break people down into 3 different buckets. Like the first thing is like, you don't know what you don't know. And there's really nothing in the planet that you don't know that you don't know. Because if you knew it, then you'd be in the next category, that you know what you don't know. And the last one is like, you know what you know. It's like riding a bicycle. It's natural. So usually like at the beginning, ignorance can be bliss. You feel like, oh, it can't be that difficult. I've had friends do this or family members. And until you kind of realize that there's a lot of knowledge here to learn about. And the industry goes very, very deep with knowledge. And that becomes super apparent once you start educating yourself a bit. So I think that's step 1, would be just educate yourself a bit to realize like the vast amount of knowledge that you really need to gain. Whether that's like listening to podcasts like this, reading books, watching YouTube videos, just start kind of going into that full immersion state. Even if it's just 5, maybe 10 hours a week, you're driving in the car, you're at the gym, like throw in a podcast, right? It can't hurt. And that'll get your kind of, the cogs moving, where you're like starting to pick up on the lingo and the jargon, because a lot of that does get thrown around, like the BRRRR strategy and BTBs and all the acronyms that are out there. So start becoming familiar with these, words and the acronyms and how all this works. But you're going to become quickly like overwhelmed, because there's a lot. And so then it really becomes like kind of step 2 is getting super zeroed in and focused on one exact strategy in one specific market. Not like what I was doing at the beginning was like learning 10 strategies in 15 different markets. And if you're the master of all, you're the master of none. I really do believe that. And so, I wasn't the dominant factor in any market at all. No one knew me for anything. So until I got like into a niche of 2 to 4 unit buildings in a specific city, I wasn't really that well known. But once realtors knew and mortgage brokers knew and, contractors knew what I was doing and where, then I was able to build up that power team. So I'd say that's kind of that next step, is building the power team, like a service circle. And when it comes to like learning a lot of this stuff too, I think fast track it and hire someone. Like I regret at the beginning, like not having hired a coach or mentor earlier. And again, like I've mentioned here at the beginning, like I've used them throughout my entire life. Sometimes I was even unaware that I was using one, like my track coach.
Mm-hmm.
But I think ultimately hire someone, work with someone, pay a little bit of money to ultimately save yourself a ton long-term, a ton of time, a ton of other mistakes and losses, probably financial losses too. So that would be my other kind of recommendation there.
I agree. That's a great, that's very, that's great advice, because when people do start out, there's so many shiny pennies. I call them shiny pennies. When you see a shiny penny on the floor, oh, look, there's a shiny penny. Oh, look, there's a shiny penny. Catches your eye, catches your interest. And in real estate, there's so many shiny pennies, right? You can do tax deeds, tax liens. You can do self-storage, warehousing, office, medical, residential, 2 to 4, 50, 100, whatever it is, right? You gotta be laser focused, right? You got to be laser focused on your niche, on your market as well. How do you go out and find the markets that you want to invest in?
Yeah, like we're certainly focused on a few different factors when we're looking at a market. So I can kind of break it down from a 10,000 foot view, like for kind of that view looking down on all these cities, and how do we pick the right one? I make the first distinction between a value market and a vanity market. So I always work in value markets. Vanity markets kind of have this, I guess, clout, you could call it, or branding to them. It's really like, I like to think of it as like when you're talking to a 13-year-old girl and you're saying, hey, like, where do you want to grow up when you're older? Oh, New York or Paris or Toronto or wherever. Like those are the vanity markets. There's like, there's a branding to it. So you're paying for that branding, just like if you were going to buy a pair of Ray-Bans or like really nice clothing. You're paying for that extra branding, which is good because the populations are usually larger. But again, when you're starting, that might actually not be the best way to do it. So I look at value markets. Value markets, no one usually knows them, or very few people do. You don't grow up when you're younger and think, oh, I'm going to move to that place. That's usually the way that it works. And at the same time, like there's usually value there. So there's value being produced. There's strong importation or exportation.
Mm-hmm.
It's oil refineries. It's whatever. The forest industry. There's something going on there. The fishing industry, like where I was from in Nova Scotia, there's something going on there that's creating value, right? So you want to make sure that that's apparent. I actually look for at least 50,000 people in a city. That's just my personal opinion, my preference. I think that praises the sustainability of that city, and because hey, if like there's only 2 economic drivers in one city, and there's 10,000 people, and both of those economic drivers move out, and the population, halves or goes down to a tenth of what it was, what is that going to do to your occupancy and your vacancy? So I would really strongly recommend you kind of look for cities over 50,000 people. They're in value markets. And within that city, I actually kind of look at what are called evergreen areas. So I consider that to be, the areas where, hey, if there were people to leave the city, where would they still congregate and kind of stay to? And typically that's like the nicer areas. They're more well kept, and they can attract A++ tenants, so I can get A++ rents. Those would be kind of a few quick distinctions that I look for. There's a couple more as well, like when you're analyzing it, looking at price per unit compared to price per 1 bedroom and that ratio. But yeah, those would kind of be the 10,000 foot view distinctions that I make with how to pick a market.
Great way to pick a market, right? Very nice. All right, Riley. Well, hey, you know what? I appreciate it. We're running a little bit out of time here. Why don't you share with our listeners how they can get in touch with you?
Yeah, like I'd love to connect with your audience and anyone that has questions, or if I could give them a bit of guidance too, if they're looking to go from 0 to 1. You can reach out to me there on my website. It's at RileyOickle.com. And you can also message me there on Instagram or on Facebook at Riley Oickle Investor. And again, love to connect with anyone.
Awesome. Well, hey, Riley, thank you so much for being on the show. I know you're super busy. It was great. It was great having you, and really great success story.
Yeah. No. Hey, thanks for having me on. It's been a pleasure. Yeah.
All right. We'll see you soon. Take care. Thank you. All right, travelers. This is Nitzan Moser, the Traveling Investor, for another edition of the Traveling Investor Show. And just remember, next week, June 17th, we've got Andrea Smiley. She's the founder of Valor and Grace Literacy Cove, and also my special offer, right? I got my Real Estate Investment Secrets ebook for only $1. Pick it up now. Next week, somewhere on Spaceship Earth. I'll see you then. I'm Nitzan Moser, the Traveling Investor. Take care.